Okay, Venicia, can you check to make sure we're live on Facebook right now? Just a quick check. It says we're live, but you know.
Okay, double check.
Facebook gets tricky sometimes.
Right.
Okay, we're on in now. It's 7 o'clock. We're about to let everyone in. Is everybody ready?
We're ready.
Everybody give me thumbs up.
Thumbs up.
We're ready to hear the vision of these candidates. So let's do it. It's for our youth. All right. Let me just admit all. Save us time. Okay, if everyone can come in muted, please.
Hello. Hi, Malika.
Hi. Hey, Marquise. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Good, good. Awesome.
Wonderful.
Awesome. I know you're going to get some questions in because you got that experience. Okay. All right. So if you all see me looking off here, I'm admitting people, you know, seeing what's going on over here. But let's get started. All right. Okay, everyone mute. I'm hearing a little noise. Someone's got some noise going on. Let's mute. All right. So good evening, Evanston. Good evening. Welcome to the D65 Candidate Forum 2023. Happy Black History Month and everyday Black History. Welcome, welcome. I am Malika Gardner. I'm your host this evening, Evanston Live TV. And we have our sponsors with us here today, Yo Fresh, Dr. and Dr. Murphy. Absolutely love them. They are stand-up citizens here in Evanston, a lot of respect in running a business, and education is very, very important to them. They do quite a bit, and I'm going to let them give you a little bit about who they are in this community. Everyone knows them, but we're going to let them break it down to you anyway. And then we also have the voice of the youth, one of our young activists here in Evanston, Olivia Olson. She started her own foundation, Diversified Golf. And I thought it was important that we have a youth who went through D65 already. So she's got some insight into that, and she's one of our sponsors this evening. And I'm so, so proud to have her here. So you know what? We're gonna start out. I'm gonna give them 60 seconds to tell you who they are, these sponsors, who they are in our community, and why they wanted to be a part of this panel, though I asked them. But why did they agree, right? So we'll start with Jean and Larry Murphy from Yo Fresh, owners of Yo Fresh Evanston.
All right, this is Jean Murphy, and Larry and I are excited that you invited us to be a part of this. But we are very much interested in youth and youth development. And we want to make sure that the persons who are responsible for administering programs for youth are the right ones, and that they are advocates for youth and beyond.
All right.
Larry, you want to add to that?
Dr. Murphy, you're muted.
Basically said it. We have given our professional and personal lives and careers to the development and expanding the horizons of youth, particularly African-American youth, but all youth. Your professional career, Jean, has certainly been focused around that, as has mine on another end. So it matters who is in the nurturing care and leadership of our youth, and it matters to us. That's why we're here.
Awesome. Absolutely awesome. I want to thank you guys so much. Thank you for all that you do in this community. And I know that you all help the Black Lit there at Yo Fresh as well. And I encourage everyone, if you need anything catered, definitely look up Yo Fresh because they do it right. It's professional. The food is good. I'm always referring them out, always, always. So thank you so much for your time this evening. And I know, Ms. Murphy, you're going to have to go soon, so we're going to get to that first question in just a moment. I'm going to bring on our next sponsor, and that is Olivia Olson. She created Diversify Golf. So 60 seconds is yours, Olivia.
I use she, her pronouns, and I am a product of D65 schools. I attended Orrington in kindergarten and 5th grade, and Bessie Rhodes from 1st through 4th, and then Haven for middle school. I am currently a sophomore at ETHS, and I have attended several D65 board meetings over the years, school board meetings over the years, and spoke at a couple as well. And I am just deeply committed to helping make Evanston a better place, especially for our youth. And so about a year ago, I started Diversify Golf to help expose girls and kids of color to the game of golf, which is a game that I love. And so I'm here tonight as a sponsor for Diversify Golf. I've held a couple of putting and chipping pop-ups as well as a camp through Fleetwood Jourdain Community Center with my golf program, Diversify Golf. And I encourage you to check out my work on social media. So I'm very honored to be here tonight. Again, I'm Diversify Golf, and thank you so much, Malika, for inviting me.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for your time this evening. And we have our special guest panelists. We have Heather Sweeney, someone I have come to know in this community, and she's one of them quiet lions throughout the community. Sarah Liddell, had the pleasure of just reading the questions that she submitted. I was like, all right now. And then we have Mr. and Mrs. Zareski joining us this evening as our guest panelists. So I want them to just take a quick 60 seconds to tell the world who you are. We'll start with Heather Sweeney.
All right. Hi. Thanks so much, Malika. My name is Heather Sweeney. I'm a lifelong Evanston resident and been back in Evanston for about the last 20 years. My kids went through 65 and I have one left at 202. My background is in social work and education, and I'm committed to racial justice in Evanston. Thanks again for having me.
Thank you, Heather. Thank you. Thank you. Sarah Liddell.
Yes. Hi. Yes, I'm Sarah Liddell. I have lived in Evanston maybe about 15 years or so. My kids are in D65 and D202. My background, my career background is science in the science engineering field, but I'm very committed in doing a lot of social work within our community. So happy to be here.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Okay, and we have, I don't know if Mr. Zareski is here. I know we have Emily Zareski here.
I think he's about to pop in. He just got back with the kids from their activities tonight. So I'm Emily Zarefsky. My husband is Mark. We are both lifelong Evanston residents as well. We grew up going to D65 and D202 schools, met actually at Evanston Township. So been together a long time and decided to raise our families here, our family here. And we have 2 kids in D65 right now. And we're both also committed to social and racial justice in Evanston.
Okay, thank you so much. I love community members who just really get involved. It means so much. So I know everyone is looking forward to hearing from these candidates. They have a vision for our youth, and we need to know what that is before they take these seats. Again, I want to thank the audience out there that is watching. You could have been anywhere tonight. There's so many things going on in Evanston tonight. You could have been anywhere, and I thank you for joining us tonight. This will be recorded. The full video will be out as well as highlights. So those who couldn't make it, they'll be able to learn a little bit more about these candidates. So we're going to get right to it here. Are our candidates ready? Let me see some thumbs.
Ready. We're ready.
Okay. Well, let's get a little introduction to these candidates. We're going to start with the incumbents. So first we have Sergio Hernandez Jr. actually, he's been the president of D65. So Sergio, if you want to let the people know who you are.
Absolutely. I just want to thank Evanston Live TV again for hosting this forum, along with the sponsors, Yo Fresh and Diversify Golf. Again, it's an honor to be in front of a community and looking forward to engaging our community in this campaign. So my name is Sergio Hernandez Jr. I am the first Latin A elected official in Evanston and the first Latin A board president of the Evanston Skokie School District 65 School Board. I'm a husband and father of 3 boys, 2 who graduated from District 65 and 1 currently attending middle school. I'm a 25-year veteran bilingual educator, an early childhood advocate, the equity lead at the Illinois State Board of Education, a lifelong community activist, and I also sit on the board of the Youth Job Center. So again, I really care about education and development across the human development spectrum. As our community and school district continue to recover from the current pandemic, it is critical that we all work together and within our school community, as well as with our community and institutional partners, to operationalize and normalize equitable access to the resources our students and families need to succeed in their lives and in their community. So that's what I'm committed to, and I will give it up to other colleagues who want to introduce themselves.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sergio. Thank you. Thank you for your work so far in this industry. I've been watching you a long time since I just moved back here. I had the pleasure of meeting you. So thank you so much, Sergio. We have incumbent Mya Wilkins. Mya, tell the world who you are.
Good evening, everyone. First of all, I want to also thank Evanston Live and our sponsors tonight. A little bit about me. I have 2 children in District 65, a 3rd grader and a 7th grader, and nothing matters to me more than my children. I'm running for school board because it's not only important to me that they receive a quality education, but also that all of our children receive a quality education. I believe that maintaining a focus on equity, supporting social and emotional learning, and then being fiscally responsible are critical to making sure that we have a strong district. I also want to share a little bit about my professional background. I moved to Evanston 18 years ago to attend Kellogg School of Management at Northwestern. And after getting my MBA, I completed an internship in the Office of Planning and Development for Chicago Public Schools. And that really increased my interest in educational policy. I'm currently an executive director in marketing research at JP Morgan Chase. I believe that my professional background, my personal experiences, and my passion for education are all things that will benefit the school board and our district. And I'm looking forward to sharing more about that with you this evening.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much, Mya. Thank you. Thank you. I've heard wonderful things about you, your leadership as well. So thank you for all that you've done so far for D65. Okay, and next we have Omar Salem. Am I pronouncing that correctly, Omar?
No, Salem, but that's okay.
Salem. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you, Omar. Tell the world who you are. Thank you.
Sure, thank you. And my daughter would tell you it's like the witches.
Oh.
So speaking of whom, you might hear her. So I have a daughter who's 5. She goes to King Arts. Then I have a son who's 2, who's a future D65 student. So you might hear them in the background. So I'm married to my wife, Stephanie, who's a native Evanstonian. I grew up in nearby Morton Grove, and I worked at Niles North. I have worked at Niles North since 2009, where I was an ELL teacher, business education teacher, a special ed teaching assistant, athletic coach, club sponsor. I've done a lot of it, almost all of it. For the last almost 2 years, though, I've been on leave while I work with the Illinois Federation of Teachers, which is one of the 2 unions in Illinois, teachers unions, that is. And my job it comprises of essentially half professional development for teachers and teaching assistants, and then half policy work and supporting our teachers and teaching assistants, when they work with politicians or the state board and things like that. I have a master's in ELL and special education, and I have finished the coursework for an MBA in school business finance. I just need to do the internship. So, I feel like in education, I've done it all. I've been in the classroom as a leader. I've been in the classroom as an assistant. I've been with students all over, the spectrum. I'm committed to equity and anti-racism. And then I also have the financial piece. So I kind of feel like you know, when I saw that there was an opening and I did apply for those and now I'm running it, I just feel like my unique experiences are kind of perfect for being on the school board. So I really appreciate you having us. And I do just want to give a shout out to Olivia. I'm happy she's here. I think the thing I miss most about my current position while I'm on leave is just teaching. You know, I was a high school teacher for a long time. And so happy to have you here, Olivia.
All right. Thank you so much, Omar. I've learned quite a bit about you, and thank you for all that you do in the community, and thank you for wanting to put yourself out there to do more for our youth. So thank you. All right. And our next candidate is John Martin. John, you want to tell the world who you are?
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you to Evanston Live TV. Thank you to our sponsors. It's an honor just to be here among everyone that is gathered for this. And just to tell you a little bit about myself, my wife and I moved to Evanston in 2015, and we have 2 children that are in District 65, a first grader and a second grader. In getting involved with the community, I started coaching soccer with AYSO, and after a while became the registrar for 2 years, and then became the commissioner for 2 years. And it gave me the opportunity to get to know so many different families and experience the great diversity that Evanston has and that we have in our community, which I think is truly unique and love being a part of. I saw this opportunity to run for the school board in District 65. So I'd like to see equity and excellence coexisting and complementing each other, and an independent and transparent board, and just looking to educate the whole child. So I think with background, my background's in business, I think I can lend a lot as it relates to the transparency and the fiscal responsibility and community service with our youth. I love being a part of that. So I think that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, John. Thank you for your passion for wanting to serve D65. Thank you. And next we have Indona Mumbaye. Indona, did I pronounce that correctly?
No, it's Indona Muboyai.
Indona
Muboyai.
Muboyai.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's correct.
I got it. Okay,
Yes.
Indona, share with the world.
All right. So unlike the rest of the candidates, my family's been in Evanston over 100 years. So I know the good and the bad. And the reason why I decided to throw my hat in the ring yet again is because I know that Evanston can offer so much more to our children. And I have a background in finance. I've worked over 20 years as a business and financial consultant. I also am multilingual. I speak 4 different languages. And I also am a community activist. And I am one who believes in reinforcing a strong positive identity, specifically for Black children, but also reinforcing a positive identity for all children, to make sure that all children believe in themselves and to understand that regardless of where you come from, to believe in yourself and that all things are possible. And the reason why I decided to run this round is to help the district to be able to provide to all children what I know it could, knowing that for the past nearly 50 years, our children have not been getting what they should be getting. The academic achievement gap has been getting increasingly worse, and there have been more and more excuses made. And I believe that by me running, I would be able to assist the district to improve on what the education that we know that the district should be able to provide to the children. That's why I'm running.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Indona. Thank you for that. And we thank you for your passion to want to serve on D65. Thank you. All right, so Dr. Murphy, I know you have to get going, so I'm going to let you go ahead and throw out that first question to all of our candidates.
Thank you so very much. So as the candidates were introducing themselves, one of the things that is noteworthy is the diversity of the candidate pool, representing a variety of different ethnic and racial and social economic backgrounds. As we know, there is quite a ferment and furor in the land now around this very matter of equity, particularly as it impacts our school curricula. There are some state leaders who have actively interjected themselves into the matter of what should be taught in our educational systems. What books should be included on book lists or in libraries? So my question for the candidates for District 65 is, how do you intend to engage this conversation about what constitutes legitimate education relative to the inclusivity of the identities, the backgrounds, the orientations of our students, but also of the story itself of what constitutes education? How will you make your contribution to the students, to the teachers, to the curriculum planners, to the school administrators around this issue of what constitutes legitimate inclusivity in our educational system?
All right, who do you want to direct who do you want to direct to first?
Leave it open to whoever would like to step forward and take the lead off on that.
All right, I believe I saw Omar release his audio first. Okay.
Like Jeopardy. Thank you. I think it's a great question. And I would like to open by saying, I hope that in Evanston, like, we're not going to see what we see in Florida with book banning, with the AP African-American history curriculum, things like that. But, I still think it's a good question that we need to address. I'd open by saying I am, like, for the past few years for the American Federation of Teachers, I've been working on a team that we call the Identity Affirming Classrooms team. And so, like, what we try to do is take equity beyond just a word and just like inclusivity, because inclusivity just means everybody can come and everybody can be there. And it's really about giving every single child the opportunity to be proud of their identity, whatever that is, to be able to showcase it, and to not ever have to feel alienated, marginalized, things like that. And I think an important aspect of that is, again, like, obviously not book banning, but I think it's giving the teachers the ability to teach what they know is right. And I think, we have creating a curriculum where teachers do have a choice of novels or a choice of books or whatever it is they're teaching to do that, and they can pick their vehicle. For the last almost year, I've been on the Social Studies Community Engagement Committee, and that's been something we've been talking about a lot, is we're creating this curriculum, we're helping create this curriculum that the teachers all have access to, from which they can choose what to do. So I think my time's almost up, so that's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I want to jump in and share a little bit about. So I'm a firm believer in the multicultural multicultural education concept of windows and mirrors. Right. I believe that children need to see themselves reflected in the educators, in the curriculum, and the materials that they encounter, right, and in the settings that they encounter. And we also need mirrors, windows, to be able to see and learn about others. In my time as a board president, as a board member at School District 65, again, we've initiated an equity policy and several policies around curriculum that ensure that we have a culturally responsive curriculum. And our current curriculum instruction administrators are working on that as we speak. Again, there's a requirement now in Illinois to provide culturally responsive curriculum. So again, we were a little bit ahead of the game before the state got on. But again, I think we're leading in that sense, is that we're trying to provide that windows and mirrors concept to our children and families here in District 65. So again, we're rolling out a new social studies curriculum that'll be reflective and really teach the whole history, the good and the bad, to our children in a developmentally appropriate way and in an academic rigorous way. So again, I'm proud of that work that we're doing on to ensure that that curriculum unfolds and our children get to experience that.
Okay.
And I can add, so I have traditionally been a parent who, with my own children, oftentimes because my background is very diverse, where I've actually had to even provide books to my children's teachers to help them to educate even my own children on our diverse background, being someone who have both African American and having a parent from continental Africa, and having to educate even my mother had to do the same thing with myself when I was a student in District 65. So, I'm a parent who has a strong belief that having diverse curriculum and, even creating a panel where parents can help to contribute and having an input on what type of literature is going to be provided in social studies to help to engage the community on what's going to be used to educate the students is highly important, I believe. Because sometimes if you just leave it to the school, a lot of times information is left out. When my daughter was at Haven, there was a situation where I had to provide culturally sensitive information because unfortunately the information wasn't made available. So at that time, something such as Florida could take place.
Yeah, I think it's incredibly important to be able to, for students and for kids to be able to see themselves reflected in the materials and the books that are used. But I really think that it goes beyond that when you're talking about equity. Like, I think that there are lots of different dimensions in order to really achieve equity. And it really begins with like acknowledging and understanding how things are the way they are and what disadvantages people might be facing and why. And I think that really needs to be at the forefront for educators, for policymakers, and then in turn, making sure that students in a developmentally appropriate way understand the history and their history as well. I think that a big part of it from a curriculum perspective is giving them the opportunity to really question, to critically think about things, to, ask questions and have discussions around some of these topics, I think is important, as well as the instruction that goes into it as well. But, it really is multifaceted. I think it's about the instruction. I think it's about the culture and climate. Like, in order to achieve equity, you have to feel like you're welcomed at a school. You have to feel like you belong and that you're accepted. And I think that there are a lot of different things that our district is doing in order to try to implement that now. Things like eliminating the disproportionality in discipline. If you don't feel like you're welcome, if you always feel like you're the one who's getting in trouble, or you're going to be the one who gets in trouble, that affects how you think about your learning situation. So there are lots of different things that I think go into really achieving full equity.
Yeah, and if I could jump in, I think we're all on the same page. Equity and academic excellence is essential. Culturally inclusive and reflective education is what we want for our kids. I come from a background where much of my decisions and my learnings are data driven, and so that's why I'd like to see metrics and milestones for how we can close the achievement gap. Looking to the efforts that have been made to mirror the demographics of our community within the teaching staff. So we need more Black male teachers. I think that's a very important. But all in all, I think while proving that we have these initiatives for equity is we also need to, at the same time, give the teachers the trust that they deserve, and work with them so that they have that respect and they are able to communicate effectively with the administration.
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you for that question, Dr. Murphy. I don't know if he's still with us. Thank you for that. And I know you have to get going, so thank you so much for
Appreciate
that.
the and I thank you for the work that you're doing in this event this evening.
Thank you, and good luck tonight at Northwestern. Okay, yeah, that question, I loved hearing these answers because everyone knows I worked on legislation to assure accurate history of Black history and including everyone's history that helped to build this country. But you know, they tend to start our history at slavery, and we know who we were prior to being enslaved, and that's not taught in the schools, is it? Let me see some.
No.
No, it's not. It is not. And I think it does have an impact on the race relations as kids grow up because they're being fed information that is not accurate. I'm going to throw out 2 questions and then I'm opening it up to our panelists as well. But first, let me get, let me see. Okay, I'm going to throw out the next one and then I'm going to get to our 2 sponsors and then we're going to give it to the panelists and then open it up to the residents. So I got a little 2-part question here. 1, Black history, teaching Black history. What have you seen? I know some of you touched on this, but what does it really mean to you and how do you see it helping race relations? And then 2, I want you to pick an opponent and ask that opponent a question. Okay, so I'm gonna start with John Martin. What is Black history? And why don't you believe it's being taught accurately? And what can we do to change that? And then
I'm sorry, I just wanted to clarify. Did you say I don't think it's being taught accurately? What was the question?
We know it's not being taught accurately. We know that.
Okay.
I'm asking you, what can we do to change that? And your thoughts on that. What is Black history to you?
Yeah. Well, I think Black history to me is a lot of what you just outlined in terms of not only more recent events going back, to the 60s and seeing what the civil rights movement meant to this country and the world, but going back and understanding the full history of people being uprooted from their homes without consent and brought over to this country and the full history of slavery. I think being very upfront and honest about all of those issues is exactly the way we need to teach our children, so that we can, by understanding the past, we can not repeat it and move into more positive directions. It's encouraging to me to hear from my kids to talk about how much Black history is focused on in school right now. It's a daily lesson that they hear. The message is resonating, and I think that's fantastic.
Are they being taught pre-enslavement, or are they starting our history at slavery?
I think the latter.
Okay, and what are your thoughts on pre-enslavement, who Black people were prior to?
I think it's absolutely something that fits it well into the curriculum, or should fit well into the curriculum, I should say. But you also mentioned that. So I should ask another candidate a question now. Is that?
Yes.
Okay. So Sergio, I was actually interested in asking you a question. And I wanted to know, just as the board president, does the board view the steep decline in enrollment, I think 20% since 2018, while the school age population has maintained constant? Does the board view that as a problem? Are there any plans in place to try to stabilize enrollment? If so, what are they? Or if not, why not, I guess?
Yeah, no, thank you for that question, John. Yeah, it is a big concern. At the committee of the whole meeting earlier this week, I brought up an AP article, right? Across the country, there are over 230,000 children missing from the public school rolls. I don't know if you saw that, but it's incredible. And so it is just, and I mean, again, the article does a really good job of breaking down some of the reasons why kids have dropped out of public school systems. And a lot of, some of the folks who had more resources moved over to private schools or homeschooling. Others moved just out of the state or to a different place. Some folks who are actually have young little ones, kindergartners and preschoolers, are just keeping them home. Again, a lot of them still scared from the pandemic. Again, a pandemic that we're still dealing with. So it's a huge concern for me. And I think one of the things I'd love for us to explore is really figuring out how we can better recruit families across the community, starting with the early childhood programs. I know that we have our own early childhood programs over JEH, but again, we're also in community collaboration with several child cares, as well as our other early childhood programs across the community. And that's a place perhaps where we can start promoting and encouraging folks to enroll their children in kindergarten. Again, and I'd love to maybe put out a community survey just to kind of see and try to find those families, and working with community organizations to figure out why they might not be enrolling their kiddos, right? But again, we've seen a historic loss just in the past 10 years in the diversity because of the affordability issues here in this community. So that's a big concern. And I think one of the things we want to do is work with the city of Evanston in helping identify families who may be struggling, trying to make a living or stay in Evanston and keep Evanston as a residence, and really try to explore opportunities institutionally, right, cross institutionally, to really ensure that we're helping out families. Making sure that families have what they need in order to succeed in this community, be they wraparound services, rental assistance, as well as academic, social, emotional supports.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for that. We'll start with you, Sergio. What is teaching Black history? And then I want you to pick an opponent and ask them a question.
Yeah, so for me, I'll give you a little history lesson here. So in Mexican American history, I'm a Mexican American, but in Mexican history, one of the first liberators of the Americas, his name is Yanga. So he was an African slave who freed and created a colony within New Spain, which was to be Mexico, and fought against the Spaniards to create this community and to liberate his Black brothers and sisters. He fought off the Spaniards, who were this powerful group, and was able to negotiate a deal to have his own land and his own colony, which is now named after him in Veracruz, Mexico. So again, for me, that's the history that we all need to learn, and learn about how, despite the troubles and that African people across the world have gone through, that there's this resilience. They come from these very powerful civilizations that, again, set the path for all other civilizations. I think that's what for me is how we should be teaching history. Again, not just the slavery, not just the heartbreak, but also the innovation that comes from and continues to come from the Black community that inspires all other communities. And to me, it's really about contextualizing all education for all kids, right? So again, back to the windows and mirrors piece, where we need children to see themselves in the curriculum, but we also need them to look at, but also need to have the windows to learn about others, right? And how we all come through these wonderful and great cultures as well. So I'm going to go ahead and ask a question to Mya. So Mya, in running for the board, what is it, something from your educational experience that inspires you in your board work or in pursuing a position here in the school board?
So my educational experiences, they play a really big role in why I'm on the board and sort of how I think about school systems. So when I grew up, I went to schools in an inner city neighborhood where, you know, we were under-resourced all of the time. We didn't always have the things that we needed in order to get a great education. And one of the things that always made me really sad and angry, quite frankly, is that there were so many brilliant, talented people who I went to school with who just were not given the opportunities that they deserve. They were not given the chance that they deserve because of resource issues and other issues with the school. So whenever I think about education, I am thinking about it from that framework, not only me as a parent, but me as a student, me looking at my peers, me looking at how people were disadvantaged and how, you know, there were other schools a couple of miles away where you would get a completely different experience. And it's just so fascinating because, you know, like there were some incredible teachers at my school. Like there were some people there who would hold up to the top teachers in the country. They gave their all to students. They made sure we had what we needed. They taught us well. But then you would have situations where you just wouldn't learn anything for a whole semester. And when I got to college, you know, computer engineering, I just had to figure out how to make that up. And so as a student, like I can remember being in high school and just like looking over some of the assignments some of my peers did and just thinking like, why is it this way? How did we get to this point where someone could go all the way through high school and not be so prepared? And why is getting a teacher like playing the lottery, where sometimes you get a great one, sometimes you don't? Isn't there some sort of way in order to build consistency? And so that's always in the forefront of my mind when I'm thinking about what we do in District 65.
Thank you.
Okay.
Right.
And Mya?
Oh, so I hate to do this, Sergio, but I've been wanting to ask you this for a while, so I'm going to go ahead and do it. Because I think you've got more experience than any of us. So I want to know if you had to go back and talk to your younger self before you started on the school board, what's the one thing you would have told yourself or you wish you would have known?
So the person I replaced, Richard Rickus, again, it was his board vacancy that I took over, and he warned me, Sergio, this is a lot more complicated than you think it is, right? It's very different to be behind the days and asking the school board to do things, but it's another thing to actually do the work. And again, he was right, and it takes a lot of deliberation. It takes a lot of paying attention and really reading through tons and tons of reports and budgets and all that good stuff. Again, you're doing it for free, and then we're here running, spending our own money to run and represent and the best interest of all kids. And so again, just really being thoughtful about how difficult it can get. But again, it's an honor. It's an honor and humbling for me to be able to be a diverse voice in this public body, and also to try to serve all students and families, right? But also being able to advocate for a voice that in Evanston has been growing but hasn't been seen, right? So for our Latino community, who's been, we've had folks who've been here for 50, 60 years who have not been acknowledged or are behind the scenes, right? But really make life for a lot of us easy through their work in all sectors, right? From being doctors to landscaping.
20 seconds.
And really, so really, again, the thing I would have told myself is like I should have thought about how difficult this job can get. But I'm super proud of the work that I've been doing so far in one of my most diverse boards in the North Shore.
Yeah, that really resonates with me. So thank you. Let me go back because I want to answer your question about Black history and what does that mean to me. So I think, Black history, I think it's incredibly important to start before slavery. I think like we need to understand that our experience is defined by discrimination and the things that have occurred in this country. That's not where we started. I think that it's incredibly important for students from a pride perspective to understand that there is more to Black history than starting with slavery. So I'll start with that. I think that Black history encompasses everything. So it should encompass, race relations in our country. It should encompass the experiences that Black Americans and Black people in general have. It should include the contributions that we've made to this country and around the world. I think that Black history needs to include all of those things. And then also, I think that it's really important in an age appropriate way to apply really like critical thinking to that and help people understand, like even today, the why, the how, and the how people have overcome from a Black history perspective. So like as that student sitting in the schools that I was in, a big question that I wanted to know was why? Like, how did we get here? Why are things so different? And I think like understanding that helped me understand my experience and the things that I needed to do as well. So I think that why is really important, understanding how things work, understanding, how some of these things have been perpetuated for so long. Like, why so many years after slavery do we still have an opportunity gap? What are some of the reasons why, like if you look at a lot of Black neighborhoods, you don't see the same, investment, and you don't see the same things that you see in other neighborhoods. So understanding that why is important, and then teaching how we've overcome, I think is incredibly important and also inspirational. And that is, I think, what helps a lot of students get through.
Okay, thank you for that. And I believe we have left Omar and Indona. We'll go with Omar.
I'll answer the Black history question, right?
Yes.
So I think the problem with the way we've traditionally learned Black history is it centers white folks. It centers slave traders. It centers, people who were doing bad things to people who were then enslaved. And I was in DC last month, and I went to the relatively new African American History Museum, and I was listening to people. I was by myself, so I was listening to people. I was looking at things, and I realized that most of that, the museum was centering Black voices, Black experience. And I think that's what we need more. And I know some of the candidates have already spoken to that. So I don't want to repeat everything that was said, but Black history shouldn't start at slavery, and maybe shouldn't, it doesn't only need to be about overcoming. It can just be about, other things that have been good, in history, but also Black history is not done. So Black culture needs to be honored. It needs to be affirmed still. And that would be through cultural appreciation, not cultural appropriation that we sometimes see in some places. So yeah, that's my answer.
Okay, and ask an opponent a question.
Cool, yeah, so I want to ask Indona a question because you are the only candidate who grew up here and went to D65. So my question is, did you have a favorite teacher that you still remember to this day? And if so, what about that teacher was so special and so memorable? And if that's too hard, maybe one of your children's teachers, but I'd love to hear about yours if you have one.
I have actually two favorite teachers. One was not in District 65. She was outside of District 65. So
that's okay. What did you like about her?
She was at Family Focus, Miss Joanne. But she was the person who was my favorite outside of District 65, and I went to her after school, after I left District 65 schools. I didn't have a favorite teacher at District 65. Honestly, I didn't. My favorite teacher in the public school system was in high school, but at District 65, I didn't have a favorite teacher. I'll be honest with you.
Okay. Wow, and Donna, get the feeling you just.
I don't want to lie to you.
You and D65, like, what's up?
That's why I'm running.
Okay. All right. And Black history to you and a question.
Well, Black history to me, it means so much. And I continue to see that Black history in the school system centers whiteness, centers slavery, centers all of the misery that has to do with the history of Black people in this nation, in the world. And I believe that Black history needs to start from inception of humankind. The fact that humankind started in the continent of Africa and on from there. And I just believe that there's so much that needs to be taught from the time that we start teaching children science in schools. The history of Black people needs to be incorporated. From the time we start to teach anything in schools, I believe Black history needs to be incorporated in all of it. And I believe the Black history should not be separated from anything that's taught in the schools. I believe the Black history is all history, to be honest with you. Because if you look at the history of all things in the United States, come from whether it's inventions, just basic things, street lights, irons, ironing boards, all of it goes back to things that Black people have created. So it's not being taught in the proper manner. And there's just so much that needs to be corrected, and it's not being taught properly.
Okay, thank you. And your question for one candidate.
My question for, let's see. Which candidate?
Okay, you have 10 seconds.
I'll choose Mya. My question for Mya, considering that you came from an inner city that you mentioned, and that there were issues with inequity, how will you help to address the academic achievement gap, or what's now being referred to as the opportunity gap in District 65 if you remain on the board?
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. And like the opportunity gap, that has been something I have been following pretty much since I graduated from high school and figured out that there was something called an opportunity or achievement gap. And the first thing I think is just like understanding that it is a hard problem that has persisted over decades and decades. Like I can remember like in the 2000, Melinda and Bill Gates throwing tons of money in order to get rid of the opportunity gap. And yet here we are in 2023, and still across the country, it's a huge problem that hasn't been solved. So first of all, I think like it's important to acknowledge the scope of the problem and how long it's persisted. But with that being said, I do think that there are things that District 65 is doing that is moving us in the right direction and is going to address the problem we have specifically in District 65. I think you have to take a 360-degree approach to the problem. One thing isn't going to fix it. You really have to have a combination of a lot of different strategies in order to move students and in order to make sure they're achieving at the levels that they can achieve at. First of all, I think, early childhood education is incredibly important, because what happens is the students get to school for the first time and they start off behind, and then there's never anything that gets them to where they need to be. So I think a focus on early childhood education is critical. I think that having interventions in place so that when you see that a student isn't achieving, you have a way to actually move them to the level that they need to be at. I think oh, okay, I'm going to stop soon. I think what tends to happen is that students just go from grade to grade to grade, and they never get to where they want to be in a lot of districts. So like, I appreciate some of the things that we're doing, like the academic skills centers, so that students get high dose tutoring during the day. The instructional support needs to be there, so teachers have a way to move them as well. But I'll stop there since I'm at time, but I could talk about that all day.
All right, thank you so much. D65, Superintendent Dr. Horton, Anya, the prior board, the existing board, I think you all have actually done an amazing job, especially during a pandemic. And I mean, the numbers have gotten so much better. And D65 gets a lot of heat, but they handled that heat and they rose to the challenge. So, and the proof is in the outcome. So the children are doing better. So I do want to, give some praises to D65 in their work. But, as they say, there's always room for some more growth and new ideas and, more things to come for D65. So I'm excited to see where it's growing too. So we're going to go to Jean Murphy, and we're going to start speeding it up. So the candidates have 60 seconds to respond.
I'd like to, first of all, thank you for this opportunity to speak, but I'd like to make a statement before I ask one of two questions that I have. And that is that the U.S. Department of Education statistics records indicate that the most highly educated in the United States is the Black woman. Let me repeat that. The U.S. Department of Education statistics records indicate that the most highly educated in the United States is the Black woman. They have more degrees than anybody else. That's Black history. Okay.
Yes. Love it.
Then I like. Then so you can go to the U.S. Department of Education statistics and read it yourself. First of all, Yo Fresh wants to thank each of you, Sergio, Omar, Mya, Indoma, and John, for your service and your interest in serving the Evanston community and its school-age children and families. So thank you so much for that. There's a lot of sacrifice that you do. Here's my first question. What is your take on the disproportionately high suspension rates for Black students in the district? What is your take on the disproportionately high suspension rates for Black students in the district? And in what ways are Black students reintegrated into mainstream schooling? Is that clear?
Yes. Who do you want to direct it to first?
Whoever wants to jump in. Sergio, you've been president.
Yeah, thank you, Jean. One of the things we were committed to is, again, and this is prior boards have been working on this as well, is to really reduce punitive discipline practices. Our latest numbers, you'll see, in regards to suspensions, have dropped dramatically. They were in the uptick right after we returned from COVID. Again, our children and children across the country have all these social emotional needs. And we're trying to build relationships, right, and restorative justice practices across the system, and build the capacity of our educators to
30 seconds.
to deal with the issues that kiddos are having. But again, our numbers have dropped dramatically. We've only had 2 suspensions since the beginning of the school year. And if children do get suspended, it's actually we discourage out of school suspensions. We really try to do in school and ensure that children continue to get educated and don't lose access to learning if it's severe enough.
Okay, thank you, Sergio. And when our timekeeper says time, you have 15 seconds to clean it up, wrap it up, not clean it up, wrap it up.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. That's a great question, Jean. Thank you, Sergio. And who would like to take it next? I see Omar's ready.
I can go.
Go ahead, Indona. You want to go first and I'll go after you?
Yeah, I can go. I was just going to say that I think rather than, punishing our children and doing suspension, I know that the District 65 has been working a lot on trying to, work with organizations and, doing restorative justice. But I think that they need to also connect with the families and work on, building bridges to help to eliminate the suspensions. Because a lot of times it has more to do with, sometimes there could be something else going on. Having a better connection with the families, having a better connection with the children themselves, because sometimes it could have a lot more to do with, the child might be upset, where a suspension isn't necessary. It could just be that at that time, the child just needs to rest a little bit, just some time out, rather than going as far as suspending the child.
Time.
Okay, thank you. Omar?
So just the short answer to the original question, though, is bias, right? Like that's why Black students are being suspended more, right? And that starts from kindergarten or even before, right? That's the short answer. But how do we fix that other than, training, anti-bias training for all of our educators, every adult who works in D65? The thing I want to see more of is the SEL support for educators. Social emotional learning, right? So I think John used the phrase earlier, the whole child approach. Like that's something that is very important, right? Like, do we listen to the teachers or the teaching assistants when they identify a problem early on? And do we have the capacity, do our social workers in D65 have the capacity to address these issues? And to Indona's point, what's the outreach look like? Something I don't have enough time to talk about it now, but community schools, sustainable community schools, like, is there wraparound support? What does it look like? Are we going into the community and connecting with parents? Because it's not just the kids, the parents have had bad experiences in many of our schools. So it's going to take this whole community really approach to fix it. Otherwise it's just going to perpetuate, and school to prison pipeline is real. And so we need to, prevent that.
Yeah, and if I could jump in there too, I think Omar echoed a lot of my perspective as well, as it relates to the whole child. The numbers are the way they are with Black students being disproportionately suspended, absolutely because of bias, whether conscious or unconscious, which I think plays into it. But in terms of remedying it, it absolutely comes back to looking to the education of the whole child, emotionally, socially, as well as academically. And I'm also a very big proponent of restorative practices in order to understand and move this forward to try to avoid situations that would be result in suspensions. And I will give my 25 seconds back to the group so we can continue.
All right, thank you. And who do we have left to answer that question?
So I'll go ahead and I can go ahead and respond. So yes, definitely. I think that, bias is definitely the cause of it. I think that there are a lot of things that we're doing and we should continue to do to make sure the social emotional component is taken into consideration. We've got FACE liaisons in the district now, and their whole job is to connect between parents and families and the district. And I think that's one thing that we're doing now in order to try to resolve this problem, as well as all of the restorative practices as well as crisis prevention training, as well as different trainings throughout the district focused in on equity and understanding where the root of these
30
problems are.
seconds.
I'll stop there.
Okay. Thank you for that, Jean. That was a great question. Great question. We almost need a forum just for that. Yeah, that topic alone. Okay, Olivia has a question for the candidates and you have 60 seconds to answer.
All right. So my question is, it's a hard transition from D65 middle schools and D65 as a whole to the high school. It's a very different environment and the boards are extremely different in the way that schools are run. So my question is, how will you work to make the transition to ETHS smoother for students, and how will you partner with D202, or how do you feel it's important at all to partner with D202 to lessen the achievement gap?
Is there someone you want to direct that to first, Olivia?
No, I feel everyone can just jump in when they're ready.
Okay.
So I can start it off. First of all, I just want to say thank you to Olivia for the question and for being here and for the initiative you've shown to starting the golf program. Like that's just amazing. In terms of bridging that gap between 65 and 202, that's something that I find to be very important, that does need more attention. I think that through just increased communication with 202, and specifically just aligning expectations, so that someone that's graduating from middle school is going up against the same expectations when they go into their freshman year. And so I think really aligning that is a big step towards achieving that smoother transition.
Okay. Who's jumping in?
I'll go. So I come from, my educational background as a student and as a teacher was in Skokie, Morton Grove, Lincolnwood, and Niles, where we had 9 feeder districts feeding into 1 high school district. So I will say, I do think it's a little like, and I was, teaching high school students who come in from 9 different districts with 9 different sets of, rules and whatever. So I'm not gonna we're definitely better in that sense. That doesn't mean it's perfect. But something I would like to see, which is kind of what we see here, Olivia, is involving the students who's been through it. Like as a board member, what am I who didn't grow up in D65 or 202? What can I tell you, about how to fix it? I can ask you. We can set policy that'll involve you, that'll involve the teachers. We do something called articulation, which is where 8th grade teachers,
30 seconds.
Usually freshman year teachers work together. Let's expand the articulation. Let's do. Why not just K-12? Right, or K-22 for our students with IEPs. Especially in a place like Evanston, Skokie, we're essentially, we have 2 districts, 1 at each level. We have the ability to do that. And so definitely something that's important to me. I do think it's possible.
Okay. Mya?
I think that it is really important to collaborate and work closely with District 202. I know as a school board, we meet with them periodically to do just that. And I think that there are even more opportunities for us to collaborate both with the administration and the school board of District 202, as well as have students sort of mentor and hear from students who have been through the experiences that they'll go through at Evanston Township High School. I think that is a really big component of it as well, is getting that student feedback so that we understand more what the issues are, what the things the students are dealing with, and perhaps have even more focus in on mentoring so that you do have a buddy or you do have a mentor who you could talk about some of those things with when you first get to high school.
Okay, thank you for that. And Donna?
Yes, so I do also believe that it's important that they collaborate, especially considering that there sometimes is a bit of lag between when the students leave District 65 and go on to District 202, especially as it pertains to the literacy issues. So it would be great to have like a mentor for the students coming out of District 65, someone who can show them the ropes, and also where the boards can collaborate across the, to basically share data and to be able to help one another. So yes, I do think that it would be something.
30 seconds.
I definitely do believe that they should collaborate.
Okay, thank you. It was another good question. Thank you, Olivia. Thank you so much.
Well, I'm gonna
Oh,
answer what.
I'm sorry, Sergio.
Yeah.
Forgot the
So I want
president.
to. No worries. That's okay. I just wanted to give folks a chance to respond. But I do. Olivia, great question, and thank you for engaging us before and continuing to engage us and holding us accountable. I think when students. Again, you're the ones who we serve, right? So you're the ones that we need to listen to. Our superintendent has started a student advisory committee that actually makes recommendations to him and comes over to the school board around the end of the year to share some of the research they've done and some recommendations that we can do. What I'm thinking of doing is perhaps I know the D202 board has a student member. And it'd be really great to maybe sit both of those groups, right? The superintendent's student advisory committee with some of the youth that are involved with the D202 board, as well as student groups within the 202, and collaborate to help us find solutions and making those transitions easier between the high school and the middle schools.
Okay, thank you, President. Sorry I forgot you. Thank you. All right. Next, we're going to get over to our special guest panelists, and then we're going to open it up to the residents. Again, you all have 60 seconds to answer these next group of questions. So the first one will be Heather Sweeney. Ask away.
Okay, thank you. Mine's a two-parter. The first part is, are you aware of or affiliated with the organization FAIR? And if you have an affiliation with FAIR, can you share FAIR's position on District 65's LGBTQ and Black Lives Matter curricula? If you're not affiliated with FAIR, how do you feel about the district's Black Lives Matter and LGBTQ curricula? And John, you want to start that off?
Yeah, I'm aware of FAIR. I'm not affiliated with FAIR in any way. So the second part is Black Lives Matter and LGBTQ curriculum. So what I can say is I'm very much in favor of both of those initiatives in terms of educating our children about perspectives and ideologies that exist in the world today. I think there's a lot of value that can come from that. Like just as an example, as the commissioner of AYSO, I actually authored the transgender policy, which was to allow children to play on whichever gender team they identified with. And it was a policy I had to defend on multiple occasions. So I think that, the inclusion and equity that we can show in our community is absolutely something positive that we should continue and move forward with.
Okay. Heather, did you want to call on the next person?
And Donna, you want to go next?
Sure. So yes, I am aware of the organization FAIR, and no, I'm not affiliated with FAIR. And what was the second part of the question?
How do you feel about the district's Black Lives Matter and LGBTQ plus curricula?
So as far as their Black Lives Matter and LGBTQ curricula, I do believe that it helps students to it helps to reinforce their identity, and it helps them to better understand not only their own identity, but helps other students to understand the identities of others, and helps to reinforce a positive self-image of those particular students, whether they be
30 seconds.
LGBTQA+ or one of Black or other persons of color.
Okay. And feel free, Heather, if you have like a follow-up to any of the responses. And who would you like to go next to answer that? It's a good question.
Okay, how about Maya, then Sergio, then Omar?
Right. So I'm not affiliated with FAIR. I am very, very much supportive of the Black Lives Matter and LGBTQ plus curriculum. It's one of the things as a parent that makes me so proud about being able to send my children to this school district, is knowing that there is that sort of support, knowing that the environment is being created where students, no matter of how they identify or what their race is, they're going to be supported. And not only that, that the district is actively working to create a culture and an understanding around these different groups. So incredibly supportive of everything happening there.
Yeah, I sat on the policy committee when the LGBT with the educators, in collaboration with educators, to help pass a policy to ensure that we have an LGBTQIA plus curriculum, as well as spaces for LGBTQI families, as well as educators, to develop the curriculum and again create those spaces within District 65. Again, I support our Black Lives Matter curriculum as well, which aligns with our equity vision as a district, as well as our mission. Again, I'm aware of FAIR, as well as other groups like Awake that are trying to, again, weave their way into dismantling a lot of the equity work that we've created and passing around this information regarding our work. And again, these veiled and not so veiled attacks on again, ensuring that that our work continues, right? We really want to make sure that we're all aware of organizations like FAIR and Awake, which again are trying to infiltrate our communities.
Time.
I am definitely not affiliated with FAIR, but I am familiar with them. I've seen their website. I think it's a misnomer. And like Sergio said, we know Awake Illinois, Moms for Liberty, a lot of these organizations. I think luckily in Evanston, we don't have as much yet, but we know, like through my job, I know that they're funding school board races throughout Illinois. So luckily we're not there, and hopefully never will be. As far as, the Black Lives Matter curriculum and LGBTQ plus, inclusive curriculum, Google my name and you'll see pretty clearly that I agree with them wholeheartedly. And I think it's more than just teaching tolerance. I think it's that identity affirming piece. We need to teach kids to be proud of who they are. We need to teach other kids, how to talk to each other about gender, about race, about things like this. And one thing I do want to highlight, as I believe Sergio said, is these were created by educators. So these curriculum were created by folks who are working with the kids every day. And I think that's an important piece we need to highlight as well. So that's all.
Thank you. And Malika, is it okay if I follow up?
Yes.
I just want to note specifically, there is a note in the chat, Indona, that you were previously listed on as a chapter leader of Evanston Fair. And can you say anything about that? Because you just said you weren't affiliated with them.
So I'm not affiliated with them. And I previously was requested to volunteer with the organization, like I volunteer with many organizations here in Evanston. And then when I discovered certain things about them, I stopped volunteering with them. And that's been quite some time. And I've been asked about that previously, and I've stated the same thing each time. And you can verify through their website, through even their organization. You can even contact them to verify.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
How long ago did you end your affiliation?
It's been a very long time. And their contact information is available. It's public knowledge.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you for that question, Heather. God, I put a great panel together, don't I? These questions are absolutely, I love it. I love it. Okay, so next we have.
And
Sarah.
I'd just like to add, the reason why I stopped volunteering for them is because there were certain things I did not agree with.
Okay. Well, what led you, I'm going into Evanston Live TV mode. What led you to join them in the first place?
Well, just like I volunteered with a lot of organizations here in Evanston when I first returned in 2018, there are a lot of organizations and grassroots organizations that state that they're doing anti-racism work, and they're not all doing anti-racism work. There are a lot of grassroots organizations here in Evanston that are stating that that's what they're doing.
Okay. Got it. Okay. Next, we have Sarah Liddell.
Good evening, everybody. So I have a kind of two-part question as well. What qualifies you to address equity in District 65? What training have you done or lived experience have you had that qualifies you to address equity and to run for the board for those who are running? I'll start with John.
So the question was, what qualifies me to work with equity?
To address equity, since you're running, what
Yeah.
qualifies you to address equity in the district? Is it a lived experience? Is it training? What else do you feel qualifies you?
Well, I think what qualifies me is my experience with equity in different situations specific to. One would just be my experience with AYSO and with working. There were a couple of things that were ongoing with AYSO. So the first was a partnership with District 202 to start measuring and identifying the race dynamics of AYSO to see how we can further promotion to minority
30
groups.
seconds.
And also when I was working with AYSO, I started an initiative where I created a Spanish liaison position on the board so that we could expand our reach into the large Spanish-speaking community in Evanston, particularly where Spanish is a first language. And so that saw some almost immediate results. So those experiences I would start with.
And just a follow-up to that, can I go to a follow-up?
Yes.
A question? Yeah, so I coached in AYSO a couple years ago, and it was not a very diverse space. So did you do specific, did it become more diverse with some of the initiatives you're talking about? Did you make it more equitable? Was there specific examples of something you did as commissioner?
Yeah, the diversity increased. Some specific examples, I lowered the participation fees by 40% immediately. And then in the second year, I dropped them another 20%, just to make it more equitable, more accessible to people throughout. And for people, it was also available for free, where we provided equipment and uniforms for players that were not economically able to pay the dues. And that was 10 to 15% of our community was a part of that. And so I think that broad expansion was something that was very helpful. And we did, I was impressed to see the diversity that the demographics that I looked at represented Evanston's community on the whole.
Okay, thank you. Donna, you can go next.
I'm sorry, what was the question? Could you repeat it, please? I can't hear you.
I muted myself. What qualifies you to address equity in District 65? What training or lived experience do you have that gives you the experience to address equity?
So for me to be able to address, I'm sorry, could you repeat that? I can, because
The second part. Okay.
Yes.
What training or lived experience do you have that gives you the experience to address equity?
My lived experience to address equity, I can say, as a Black woman in this country and the numerous issues that I've had to deal with, being second guessed in my intelligence and always having to always deal with microaggressions, and systemic racism for years and knowing how to address inequities gives me enough experience to know how to
30 seconds.
How to be able to right the wrongs. And based on the current goals of District 65, that would be by one, allocating proper funds towards programs to help to meet the needs of the students who are not getting what is required in order to have an equitable
Time.
program, equitable curriculum, as well as equitable services for underserved communities within the district.
So my follow-up, so Donna, yours is a lived experience. And John, I just have another quick follow-up from your response. So Donna is a lived experience. You said you had some initiatives at AY. So do you have specific equity training? Or did you have lived experience? For John?
Yeah, I think that absolutely is lived experience, working to create a Spanish liaison, an outreach to the Hispanic community in Evanston, and seeing those results.
Okay.
I think, yeah.
So both John and Donna are saying they have lived experience. Okay, got it. Maya can go next.
All right, so I'm going to take this from a few different perspectives. First of all, I've already talked about my personal experiences. So that lived experience, both as a Black woman and then also as a parent of a Black son and a Black daughter, give me the personal experience to really understand the issue. I've been involved in multiple DEI type programs and organization. I was a part of ABC. I actually am a co-founder of Black Students Achieve, which is a group at one of my children's schools in order to help Black students achieve and close the opportunity gap. I worked with the PTA Equity Project as well in order to, I was a PEP liaison for the school as well. So I've been very involved in sort of the initiatives from a parent perspective. In addition, I have actually been a trainer and work for DEI training as well. So I come at it from a lot of different angles. But the last thing that I want to mention is my professional experience, because my work involves looking at data and using data in order to solve tough problems. And I think that there's a real opportunity to do that here from an equity perspective, look at what's working, refine, and use data in order to make things better.
Thank you.
Okay, Omar and then Sergio, thanks.
I think as I'm a man of color, I was a teacher of color. I was a student in a district student and a teacher in the same district where 60+% of our students were of color. And I think 9% of teachers were folks of color. So educational equity is my life, right? And part of the reason why I went on leave and left the classroom, although I did go through a lot of training as a teacher, like Beyond Diversity, which I also just took in D65 a couple months ago. Part of the reason I left the classroom for this position was because now I have the ability to do some of those trainings and I can share my story of what it was like to be a student.
30 seconds.
Marginalized or didn't always have the same experiences. Having said that, I'm also a non-Black person of color. So I know that anti-Blackness is perpetual, not just in white spaces, and they're in spaces with people that look like me. And that's something that I work on quite a bit in my training and my personal life and everything I do. And so that's something that I want to bring to the board as well, because I think that's something that we don't always look at, and it's colorism. And it's that anti-Blackness that is perpetual. That's something I will speak to for sure. Thank you.
So I grew up as a multilingual kid. I wasn't good at either language, Spanish or English. I was born in Chicago in the Pilsen neighborhood. And I actually went to preschool and kindergarten in Mexico City. And I, again, just struggled because I was learning 2 languages, right? But we know that little ones can learn language, and we capture things so well when we're little as human beings, right? And which is why I'm such an early childhood advocate, because that is where we can capture issues and then rectify them before they become issues later. So that lived experience, right? Coming to the States at the time in the 80s, back home, where there was no bilingual programs, what they would do is they would hold you back 1 grade or put you in special education. So again, I've lived that experience where I've been an advocate for high quality and rigorous multilingual and bilingual programs throughout my life and access for our community members. But then as an educator, and then as a resident here in Evanston, where I had found that not all our schools offered ESL or bilingual services, that they were asking families to choose. If you tested for multilingual, you had to choose that. If not, or if you tested for both special education services, you had to choose the other. That's illegal. You have to get whatever services that you test for. You need to get them by federal and state law. So we've changed that, and that's my qualification. And beyond diversity training, and I've done that as well. Done.
Okay, thank you. That was everyone for that question, right? We got everyone.
And I'm sorry, and I forgot to add that I also did participate in Beyond Diversity training with Dr. Marcus Campbell and Pat Savage.
Okay.
So just one quick follow-up. So it sounds like Sergio, you've had training, Donna, you've had training, Mya, you've had training. So you've all had lived experience, and then everybody has had training but John. John, have you had training? Just confirming one more time.
I've not participated in equity training recently.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. But it's a good though, because I think it's absolutely beneficial to bring the lived experience of creating an equity program and seeing it move forward. So training is something that's fantastic as well. You'd be interested in participating in.
Yeah, I can't think everything we get involved in now, whether you're sitting on a board for, I'm on Art Encounter, and we go through DEI training. So you haven't been invited to participate in any sort of equity. It just seems like everyone gets invited to equity training these days. It's like you have to go through it. John?
I would love to. Are you inviting me? I would absolutely sign up and participate. I have not received that invitation before, and it's interesting because it is such an important focus for what's going on, and I think to the extent that we can move beyond trainings, but actually the taking action part is what I'm most interested in, is seeing the achievement gap closed, is having those milestones, being transparent with our community and responsible. And so I think that there's absolutely a lot of things that we could take away and do better within the board.
Okay. All right, and we have Emily. Emily, you on deck?
I'm here.
Okay.
Probably a perfect follow-up to what John just said here too. And I know Mya was already asked about this initially a little bit, but to expand on this, what does educational equity mean to each of you, and how would you use your position on the board to eliminate the opportunity gap? Something that we use, learn in training is better to say than what John just said. So opportunity gap. Let's start with John.
So the question was,
so what does educational equity mean to you, and how would you plan to address the opportunity gap that exists in our schools today?
yeah, well, I think what it means to me is having and creating a place where the playing field is made even. And I think that one of the big things that I think has been working well is trying to maintain the demographic representation within the teachers. But one place where it's lacking is with Black male teachers. I heard a number the other day that there's only 7 in the district. I haven't verified that. That's kind of hearsay, but it was from someone at Crew 65 that told me that. And
30 seconds.
and so I'd like to see equity and excellence work hand in hand and see them complement each other. Because, you know, like with the great successes that have been seen in the preschools on the reporting that's come out recently, there's absolutely still room for improvement.
Thank you.
We'll just keep the same order going. Nadona?
Is it possible you could repeat your question, please?
Yeah, so coming back to what does educational equity mean to you, and how would you use your position on the board to eliminate the opportunity gap?
So to me, education equity means that all students would have equal access based on their needs. And the way that I would make sure that the way that I would address the opportunity gap is to utilize funds to help to, I would utilize funds to help to add more money where money has not historically gone, which would be to hire more diverse staff, to add more money to have more diverse curriculum.
30 seconds.
As well as to make sure that all students that are underserved traditionally, all marginalized students, have equal access to education, to more equitable education.
Okay, thank you. Mya?
Again, the opportunity gap is a huge problem across the country, and you have to tackle it in a lot of different ways at once. There isn't one thing that's going to fix it. I think, like I said before, that early childhood education is a critical component of it. Having more instructional support for teachers, having academic skills centers, and so kids get the tutoring they need in order to get to the levels they need to get to. Continued teacher professional development are all things that we need to continue to do. And then I think that it's really important from a management perspective to put resources towards these initiatives and then measure and refine them. You have to give them enough time to work up front, and then you have to look at the data to see what things need to be improved, what things need to be tweaked, but that doesn't mean that you give up on the entire strategy. You have to continue to refine and update.
Thank you, Mya.
I'm just going to quickly address Julia's question about why we say opportunity instead of academic. Achievement gap indicates that everyone had the same opportunities, right? And we know, especially in a place like Evanston, that hasn't been the case. And so I know that's like semantics, but you know, I was an ESL teacher, so teaching students, like, the words matter. What we say really matters, and that's why we call it the opportunity gap. But back to the question about equity and why, you know, what equity means to me, and this is something I've used again in my personal life and my professional life, but it's equity means that every student receives what they need to be healthy, happy, and successful. And it is intentionally vague because I think a lot of times folks focus on that academic piece only. But as someone, I can't remember now, one of the candidates up here said, people aren't going to learn, you know, students aren't going to learn if they don't feel safe, or if you know, they have some sort of trauma. So I think there are definitely things that we can be doing that are probably being done currently, but it's that social emotional learning piece that we need to start from an early age. Now, I will say my daughter's in kindergarten, and my wife and I were just talking today how thrilled we are with some of the things that she comes home with, or that the teachers share with us during parent-teacher conferences that they're doing. So, you know, at least from my small one student perspective, I can see some of those things happening.
Hi.
So what does equity mean to me? Again, for me, it's very simple. It's meeting families and their students where they're at, and providing them the resources they need in order to succeed, right? So whatever we can do in transforming our systems to be more responsive to, again, the children who are couched in families, who are couched in communities, and then utilizing these communities and these resources to align them to really support success and normalize success for all students, for the, particularly for our most marginalized students in our early childhood ESL or ESL and multilingual, as well as IEP and special ed programs. So really, it's about really trying to make sure that we get those resources to those students. And again, we as a school district have tried to make our investments, and our budget reflects this, in really trying to create best practices and invest in curriculum that is culturally responsive and is reflective of what student needs are, and also preparing and building the capacity of our educators to deliver that curriculum in a most effective way, so our students again can have a successful outcomes as when they leave our district.
Thank you.
A quick follow-up for John. I think I heard you mention transparency. Could you talk a little bit more about what transparency means to you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think to me, transparency, starts with just clear communication. So for example, the changing of college preparedness standards without clear communication to the community created a false sense of equity while really disserving students over the long run. It just aligning, so that again comes back to where I think the alignment of curriculum with 65 into 202 makes so much sense. And we want to make sure we're focusing on that. That can be as simple as having executive summary style explanations of policy decisions or key curriculum changes available and posted on the district's website. Fiscal responsibility and transparency are crucial. Just close scrutiny of all the millions of dollars that are being spent on consultants and administrators that take funds away from the students. Simple logistical things like $25,000 contracts being voted on and being made in public record. So my experience with Fortune 500, 110 companies, accounting departments, I think really positions me well to advise on fiscal responsibility. I have that real world experience to help get things done.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So to all the residents that are joining us this evening, we're opening up the forum for you to ask questions or make comments. We just need you to raise your hand if you want to ask the candidates a question directly or a comment directly. We have a lot of conversation going on in the chat, so maybe we'll just call on someone in the chat. And our panelists and our sponsors, feel free if you have more questions. Let me see, Miss Judith Treadway, do you want to ask a question? You can unmute and ask your question. Is she still with us? Judith Treadway asked, are the candidates hesitant to address critical race theory? Who would like to take that one?
I can take that. Not at all. Again, critical race theory is something that is taught in the. It's a theory that's taught in college level classes. But again, I think what we're trying to do, what the right is doing, and folks who are against diversity, equity, and inclusion and belonging work are doing is again are twisting. And making a boogeyman, and again trying to subvert the equity work that we've been working hard on and then building on, because this is not new work. I want to acknowledge that again, we called it civil rights back then. Overall, it's human rights. We have all people have a human right to have a good life and to have the resources to be able to have a successful life. And again, you've got folks out there who want to twist some of the work that we're doing and discredit it. So I am against folks who try to twist the work that we do.
Time.
Okay.
May I say something?
Oh, Ms. Treadway, yes. Was that Ms. Treadway? Okay, you're muted. You're muted, Ms. Treadway. Okay,
Okay, I'm okay now. Thank
okay.
you very much. I didn't expect for you to call me first. Sergio, I do agree with you that people twist things and people do misinterpret what the essence of what efforts we're making in the community. I also agree that we should not be playing the semantics game, changing things to make it more comfortable for those who have not been working towards correcting the problems of the past. Also, I want to say that in respect to all of the candidates, I don't think that we should be challenging the background or reputations or affiliations of candidates on the candidates forum. I think that was inappropriate for that information to be posted. And I did go to the website of the questionable organization that one of the candidates said that she was no longer affiliated to. And I did list in the chat box that on the current website, it says TBD for chapters, leaders, and for chapters presidents. And thank you for this opportunity to share my thoughts.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Treadway. Well, I have to push back a little. I think it is important that you know people's affiliations. I mean, if someone was attached to the KKK, we need to know that. If that's somewhere in their past, that's affiliations we need to know. Not to say that anyone here is affiliated with groups like that, but people need to know that information. I think it's very, very important. I mean, we have mass shootings as an issue in our country, and had people did some digging to see their affiliations, could have saved some lives.
Well, I agree with you, Ms. Gardner, but I don't feel that if you go to a website and you see on the current website that a person is not listed, then we should not be putting it up for the public. That's my point.
I get your point. Thank you, Ms. Treadway. But being in journalism, you do some digging and you find out what those affiliations are. And I do think that that's important. And for a school board, I know that they do digging because they need to know who's going to be on this board dealing with our children. Am I right?
Yes, you're right. And at the same time, we don't all love everything that's going on in the school districts. But I think that every candidate can't come and say, oh, you're the greatest district in the world, so you can get on the school board. Obviously, there are problems and we need to address them.
Exactly. Thank you, Ms. Treadway. Thank you. Thank you. We have Mari Garvanato. You want to unmute?
Thank you so much. And thank you to everyone. This is such a wonderful forum tonight. As a native Evanstonian, I was born here, raised here, continue to live here, bought my first house a year ago. And as a queer Latinx parent in Evanston, many of us know that it is something of a safe haven for the LGBTQ community. And I've heard so much tonight, which makes me feel so good about the training and experiences of the candidates regarding racial equity. I'm curious to hear more about the training or lived experiences that these candidates have had regarding queer identities and gender inclusive school environments, especially regarding the newer sexual health and safety standards that have been implemented from the state. So I'd love to hear from everyone, if possible, about their comfort level and expertise in that area.
Yeah, I can start out. I think that's a great question. When I was working with AYSO, one of the first questions when I became commissioner was, what is your transgender policy? And so I started digging and I couldn't find one. So that's why I did author a transgender policy to make it very clear that a player can participate on the gendered team that they identify with. This was something that I defended on multiple occasions, including once in person. I was on the sideline watching a game with my son that was not his game, it was for a different age group. And the dad started complaining to me about what he viewed as not acceptable of a player on a particular team participating. And I stood there and explained what the policy is and why the policy is, and stood my ground on supporting that child participating the way that child was participating.
Thank you.
I'll go next. So I was, like I said earlier, I represent members who speak with ISB. And so when they were creating this, there was a working group for the comprehensive personal health and sex ed standards. And I was there with IFT members, but there were several Evanston residents who were part of that as well. So I kind of connected with them. And so I do want to say I was proud to see so many Evanstonians on it. And more specifically, that Evanston is one of the few districts in Illinois who didn't opt out of it. So many districts, you can go to Awake Illinois' website if you decide to do that for some reason. You can see, because they're targeting districts that haven't opted out, and we are one of them. And so I would say I'm proud of that. But I want to push it further, like to that story John told, like as a teacher, I know that we can have policies, but kids don't always, like, the policy is, yes, we include everyone, welcome everybody, but I've seen children, bully, being a teenager, being a young kid is hard. And so I'd love to see, more training for our teachers, for our educators, and for our kids on how we can, combat bullying in our schools.
I just want to interject real quick. So Kristen Scott has a question specifically for John. It says here, non-binary kids are still left out of AYSO. So can you respond to that? Since you said
that's a statement?
Yes, from someone from the audience.
That statement to me rings hollow. My experience was non-binary kids are absolutely included. It's they're essentially their choice of which gender team to participate with.
I can clarify if that's okay.
Sure.
Okay, so non-binary means neither gender, neither male or female. So if you're saying that they have to choose, that doesn't really work with that.
Oh, I see. What do you think would make the most sense?
A non-gendered team.
Okay. So just across. That's a very interesting point. Yeah. I'm not the commissioner anymore. This wasn't a situation that arose while I was, but you raise a very good point.
Okay. This has been an interesting discussion. I've learned a lot about each of these candidates, a little bit more. There is one question I want to get in there, and thank you so much for your question, Mari. Thank you. And Kristen, thank you. Thank you. One more question, because we're going to be wrapping up soon. It was a question sent in regards to, we've had a lot of violence across the country, and we've had violence right here in Evanston. What are you all's thoughts on checking for guns when the kids walk into the building? What are your thoughts on that, or plans? We'll start with you, Sergio.
Yeah, so as Maya shared, one of the proactive strategies we've done is we've created a Department of Safety. We've hired managers to coordinate responses and emergency response and safety responses with our Evanston Police Department and Fire Department. This was a responsibility that actually fell on one of our assistant superintendents among 10 other things that they had to do. So the money that we spend, it's not just on consultants, but it's actually really mostly to support some of these pieces around creating a better culture and climate, and creating and building capacity across the system in order for our teachers to be able to teach and do what they have to do, and in a safe and welcoming space for our students and families. So again, we have invested in family liaisons, as well as concierges for every building, as well as a home pass system that ensures that we keep track of anybody who visits our school buildings.
Hi. Thank you.
Weapons. Who's next?
I was just going to add to that. I mean, definitely, I think safety is the number one priority, and you can't get away from that as a parent and worrying about those things. I do think that, you know, a lot of the things that Sergio mentioned are really important in terms of, you know, dealing with situations, everything from crisis prevention training to de-escalation to making sure students have someone they trust and can talk to, because a lot of times they know what's going on before we even do. But I think you also have to be careful and make sure you're creating a supportive and comfortable environment. Like, we don't want children coming into the school getting pat downs, because that's serving the wrong message. And, you know, like, as a student, I went through metal detectors in school. I have to tell you, it wasn't a great experience. It didn't make me feel great about being there. So I think that you have to take those things into consideration, and that there are ways where you could keep a positive environment and also make sure you're safe as well.
I'll go next. Yeah, I want to echo Maya. That's exactly what I was thinking. You know, my 5-year-old, we go to Northwestern women's basketball games, or we go through TSA at the airport, and she dreads it. And she cries, and, you know, making like, this may not be a popular answer, but like, you know, we can't just be reactive to what's going on. And so we live in a society where guns are prevalent. You know, I grew up where in my house, we weren't even allowed to play with water guns. So like, the fact that guns are getting into schools is so mind boggling. Right. And so how are we going to partner with Evanston and Skokie, you know, as a way to do this? And are we going to listen to the teachers and the educators and the concierge when they see something wrong? You know, we know what happened with the teacher who was shot by her kindergartner a few weeks ago. That person blew the whistle several times, and nothing happened. Like, we can't allow that to happen in Evanston. Does our, you know, admin and do our building teams have the capacity to address issues that are brought up by educators?
Thank you.
Okay, and Donna?
I was just going to add that I definitely don't think that metal detectors are necessary. You know, children need to feel safe, but they won't feel safe having to walk through metal detectors. You know, you want to make sure that you have people in the school that can be identified as safe persons within the schools. You know, people that in case they might feel as if they're feeling bullied, or if they feel like they might be in danger, that they could go to, but you definitely do not want to have them feeling as if they're going into a prison, or
30 seconds.
feel like they are in an environment where they are not welcome. So absolutely not a metal detector.
Okay, John?
This is a topic, you know, I really need to understand better and see the data on, you know, talk with the students and the ETHS safety team, you know, talk with, get their expertise and understand what is best for the students. But not, you know, the issue with metal detectors at 202 is one I'm not familiar with, really more focused on 65.
Okay, did I get everyone on that question? Okay, I believe I did. Well, yeah, that's a serious topic for D65, is whether or not to have metal detectors checking kids for guns, because it's almost becoming common. I don't have children at D65, but I have to say I would be one that would be comfortable with metal detectors at the door. I would feel better, but you know, that's just me. That's just me. That's just me in the times that we're in. Maybe not in my day, but the times we're in now, it might be something to really think about. Okay, so I want to respect everyone's time as best we can. I thank everyone. Thank you so much for your time tonight. And those that, you know, are out there watching live, thank you. To our sponsors, Yo Fresh and Diversify Golf, thank you for your time this evening and your passion and your energy into our community. And to our special guest panelists, thank you for working with me for the past couple of weeks putting this together. And thank you for your questions. We had some amazing questions tonight. And to the candidates, thank you for the courage to even put yourself out there for such an important role in this community. And I want to give each candidate, let's say 30 seconds to say what you got to say to the world, to the voters out there that are going to be showing up. Let's start with Sergio. Sergio, you're muted.
Getting late in the night there. I want to thank Evanston Live TV, Fresh, Diversify Golf, and our residents here who are engaging. Again, we have an incredible community that stays engaged and asks incredible questions. So thank you for the questions. But I do want to tell you that, again, the strength is in our diversity and diverse voices. And I want to ensure that through my candidacy and through the work, if you allow me to continue working in the school board, know that you have a champion in ensuring that we continue moving towards equity and equitable access to the resources that our families and students need, and working in collaboration with our community partners to provide more resources and really normalize success for all residents here in Evanston.
Thank you.
Incumbent Mya Wilkins.
First of all, I just want to thank you for hosting tonight and for all of the sponsors again. Really appreciate the opportunity. It's been an honor serving on the school board so far. I think there are a lot of great things happening in the district, and I want to make sure we focus on continuous improvement and that we hold on to the things that are right. Our continued focus on equity, thinking about social emotional learning as a part of education, and being responsible about spending in our budget. We've got a lot of work to do. I believe we're on the right path. We've got our challenges, limited resources, the opportunity gap, rising mental health issues across the nation, school safety concerns, and on, to name a few. But I'm prepared to help our district work through all of these things.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mya. Thank you, Sergio. Those were our incumbents. And now we move to our candidates. We have Omar Salem.
Thank you. Okay, I'll be honest, before this started, about 6:45, I'd never been so nervous to talk at a computer screen in my life, and I do it a lot. This process is stressful, and we are putting ourselves out there. And so, I do think, though, I do think it's pretty clear. I have the experience. I have, lived experience training. And the other thing I'll say is unity. I do want to see us on the same page. I do think Evanston and Skokie, I think, a lot of us are closer than we realize, and I know things can become political. So I do want to see us work together because we all want the same thing. We want our kids to be safe. We want them healthy in their schools. The only thing I'll say is I'm not soliciting donations, but I am encouraging folks instead to donate to Evanston Community Fridges. So I dropped that link instead of my website into the chat. Please donate. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Omar. John Martin.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you everyone for having us and putting this together. I have a deep-rooted belief in public education, and I like putting ideas into action and taking conceptual ideas and actually transforming them into concrete steps. And something that was not brought up tonight was the 20% drop in enrollment in 4 years, which is just tremendous. And I really want to look to repair what's going on in this community and the communication between the different groups, the teachers, the students, the parents, the administration, the board.
Time.
I want to see that repaired, and I think it can be, and get the enrollment numbers back. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. And Indona.
I want to first thank you, Malika and Evanston Live TV, along with Olivia of Diversify Golf and Dr. Murphy of Fresh for putting together this forum this evening. And I'd like also the candidates for joining me this evening, and also the surprise guests and the community members. I just want to say that I want you all to vote for me. If I do become a board member, I will continue the work of making sure that we create an equitable district for our children and connect to the organizations to make sure that happens, and the community and the families.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you to our timekeeper this evening, Benicia Mayo, all the way from Scottsdale, Arizona, but she went to New Trier. We're not going to hold that against her. That's where she graduated from. But thank you so much, Benicia. Thank you for your time. And thank you to the residents so much. Thank you. This will be out in social media, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, full video and clips of all of the candidates. And again, thank you to the candidates. Thank you for your courage to put yourself out there like this. And though we don't all agree on everything together, but the point is you care, and that's what it's all about. So I wish you all the best, and thank you all for watching. Thank you for participating. Evanston Live TV.